Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy, here for your daily dose of the roars, where we scream about the very stupid things going on in the technology world so I can earn some dirty, dirty YouTube money to provide you folks in-person, hands-on technology education in Durham, North Carolina. We're actually having a class tomorrow. Tomorrow we're having a class on extending AI capabilities using REST APIs. If you're interested in in-person classes in Durham, North Carolina, take a look at silicondojo.com to see what our current schedule is. If you want to help support that particular project, there is a donor box link down below. And now let's get into the roaring, because I'm excited today. I am passionately excited about this particular video because I get to talk about my two favorite subjects. That's right, I get to talk about layoffs and I get to talk about China, man, all in one particular video. And I think this is a good wake-up call for the people that are outside of the United States, just to remember that their countries do propaganda too. And I'm not saying that the United States is not screwed. To be clear here, I am not stating that the United States is not screwed. But there's been a little bit too much propaganda from the other sides pretending that they're all perfect and fine and don't need the United States at all, and they're just swimming along just glowingly. And I would just like to remind people, maybe not. maybe not. Again, if you're on a desert island and the other guy starves to death first, that's not really exactly the kind of win that I want. Oh, so he's gonna starve to death first. Yeah, but that means we're still gonna starve to death. Like, I don't know. Maybe in that particular situation, I would prefer to starve to death first. Like, if you're starving to death, wouldn't you be the first one to go? But I don't know. So anyways, I've been talking about a lot of this, back and forth with China and all that kind of stuff. And I think this is interesting, coming from Reuters today, that Baidu starts layoffs after reporting third quarter loss. So Baidu, Chinese tech company, has been reporting losses for quite a while now, right? They were the Google, they were the Yahoo for China, and they therefore might become the Yahoo for China. Anyways, they've been reporting losses for a while now, and it appears that they are cutting more and more employees. And they've actually been cutting employees for a while now. Again, one of the important things to understand, like I talk about the American tech world a lot, just because, hey, I'm an American. I bitch about America because I be American, right? One of the things to understand is in the tech world, right? A lot of these bastards are lemmings. And the thing is, they're an international group of lemmings. They are a global citizenry of lemmings. One of the important things to understand is not only do all the tech giants, the tech leaders in the United States basically, toe the line with whatever the current mantra is here in the United States, but one of the interesting things that you find is around the world, it's amazing how they copy the exact same stupid crap that we do. That's the fascinating thing being American, especially over my lifetime, right? Whether you talk about the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, you talk about Great Recessions, you talk about economic things. One of the most fascinating things for me is I look at something, it's like, oh my God, that is so stupid. What we are doing is so astronomically stupid. And then what you find many times is that other countries decide to say, oh, you think that's stupid? We're going to one-up you. We're going to one-up you. You're like, what? No, you don't have to copy us. You don't. Anyways. But anyways, so it's an important thing to understand, especially in the technology world, right? Because I have a lot of my viewers who are not in the United States, and so they hear about the collapse of America, which is also a little bit overblown, and they think, wow, this is our time to shine, right? All of these bots, this bot army that is now saying it is the BRICS century. Oh, you think it's the BRICS century? That is adorable. That is adorable. But anyways, right, there's this idea. And again, the important thing to understand is, remember, all countries have propaganda. Be very careful, whether you're in the United States or whether you're in China or whether you're in a BRICS country. Actually take a look at what's going on with macro forces before you start getting too comfortable with the situation. Anyways, China's Baidu started layoffs this week that will hit multiple business units. 6 sources briefed on the matter said, as the company struggles with intensifying competition in artificial intelligence and declining advertising revenue. I do think that's interesting, coming from a company like Baidu, basically kind of like the Yahoo for China, with declining advertising revenue. And I do wonder what that really means. Is this just advertising revenue that's migrating to other platforms, or basically, is there less and less money being put out there in order to do advertising? One of the problems that we have when we take a look at China from an economic standpoint is, wow, you want to talk about opaque documentation, opaque metrics and reports and all that kind of thing? Many times, the reality is we have no idea what is really going on with the economy in China, right? They consider that a national security issue, and so understanding how their economy is actually working can be a bit confusing. And so one of the interesting things here is seeing Baidu with their advertising going down. Is that just a shift of the Chinese population to where they go and they consume their entertainment or whatever else? Or is that something larger going on? The other thing to be thinking about, especially if you're an American, right? Oh, look, the advertising revenue is going down because China is failing. Right? Because again, there's a lot of people in the United States that are excited because China is doing worse than us. Look, I don't know if that's the case. Maybe that's the case. Maybe that's the case. But, Jesus Christ. They're going to starve to death first. But one of the other things to realize is they import trillions. I think they import somewhere between 1.5 to $2 trillion of goods into China every year. And a lot of that is in things like raw materials, right? And so one of the interesting things is if the Chinese economy is starting to falter, that's not just simply their factories aren't going to be sending us as much cheap crap anymore, but their factories are also not going to be buying as many resources anymore. And they might not be buying resources from other locations like Australia, right? Australia buys products from the United States. They sell iron to China. China stops buying as much iron. Australia stops buying as much crap from us. And around we go. Again, a rising tide lifts all ships, and a tsunami kills everybody. Just reminder. The move by the company, which runs China's largest search engine, comes shortly after it reported a third quarter loss on November 18th. So that's interesting. The sources added that the layoffs were expected to run until the end of this year. Reuters was not able to establish the company-wide number of jobs being cut, but the sources said it was internally perceived to be large scale. The layoff numbers varied by business unit and performance ratings and could reach as high as 40% in some teams. The mobile ecosystem group will bear the brunt of the cuts, two sources said. However, roles tied to AI and cloud computing will largely be protected, said four of the people. One of the sources said more resources would be directed to AI. So another thing to be thinking about, again, when you're in your company or whatever else, basically what niche do you go for in the technology world? One of the niches to go for right now might be AI. I mean, it is a bubble. To be clear, it's going to blow up on everybody. But, until it does blow up, it can pay your mortgage. So that's one of the things you might be considering. Again, that's one of the hard parts about being in the technology world, right? We have so much insanity that goes on in our world sometimes, and especially for very logical people, right? You look at this insanity. This is insanity. This is stupid. This is going to blow up and damage a hell of a lot of people. But right now it's making a lot of money. Until it blows up and destroys our society, it will be a very profitable venture. And that's one of the things to kind of consider as a technology professional, is sometimes you just gotta suck it up and do the stupid thing for a while. Do the stupid thing, get paid a crap ton of money to do the stupid thing, while everybody else gets fired. Baidu's workforce, and this is interesting, stood at 35,900 at the end of last year, down from 39,800 in 2023 and 41,300 a year earlier, according to its annual reports. So that's one of the other interesting things. Again, we talk about this whole glut of tech employees, and so many times when we talk about this, we talk about Meta or Apple or Amazon or those companies, just because the United States has so many of these big tech companies. But the interesting thing to look at that whole glut of technology employees isn't necessarily something that's just an American thing. I think globally, we have far too many of kind of like the IT tech employees, and it'll be interesting to see how that washes out over about the next 5 years. The cuts follow Baidu's second straight quarterly revenue decline. And so this is an interesting thing to be thinking about. Second straight quarterly revenue decline. Total revenue fell 7%, and online advertising dropped 18% in the third quarter. It also posted a loss of 11.23 billion won, $1.59 billion for the period. Baidu has spent years investing in AI, but these efforts have yet to revive growth in its core online advertising business, which has ceded market share to social media platforms like Rednote and ByteDance's Douyin. Although Baidu was the first major Chinese tech firm to roll out a ChatGPT-style service in 2023, it has struggled to maintain an early lead against competitors, including Alibaba and AI startup DeepSeek, which may also be the larger question of, is there actually that much value in artificial intelligence? What happens if you invest a metric crap ton of money into a technology that just does not have a metric crap ton of revenue or profit potential? What happens then? So this will be kind of curious to just kind of see, what's going on in the China world, what's going on with the China man, and seeing how everything, falls out in the technology world. As I talked about for a long time, I've been doing these videos. Again, I've been doing videos since 2009, but I've been doing commentary, whatever, daily blog videos and that type of thing since 2012. One of the things I've argued, since 2017, is that basically the world had enough IT employees probably in about 2017, right? If you look at it, so many of the employees, even in 2017, were being used for stupid reasons. I've talked about this before, like one investor, and it just blew my mind. Like I had heard the kind of thing before, but I don't know, for whatever reason it sunk in when I saw this particular interview. Whenever he invested, he would invest in 60 startups, with the expectation that 2 would be home runs. Something like 10 would be vaguely successful, and everybody else would fail, right? So that basically means 48 startups of employees and resources and everything else were expected to fail, to basically come out as worthless. And now you think about this as scale. This is one investor investing in 60 companies. Think about all the companies that were being invested in and basically how many failed. How many entire startups, chock-a-block full of employees, were basically doing work that was going to go into the trash can, right? Because again, it's this startup mentality. And so one of the big things to be considering, right, in 2025 and going into the future is basically how many employees do we have in the field, simply because there was way too much overhiring for way too long, and now the tech world simply has to rationalize. It's not about good, it's not about evil, it's not about China man, it's not about Yankee man. It's about fucking profit loss statements. It's about opening QuickBooks or Oracle Financials. You're going, what the fuck? Where did those numbers come from? And figuring out how to make those numbers look a little bit better, right? So yeah, I think this will be curious. I do also think that what's going to be very interesting is to see what damage is going to be done to China with Trump's trade war. Again, our asininely idiotic trade policies, to be clear, right? There is the propaganda. There is the jingoism going around that China doesn't need us. Sure. I'm sure that's absolute truth. When Whitey does it, it's propaganda and jingoism. When Chinaman does it, no, that's true. No, you can definitely trust everything that they're saying. But then the bigger thing is like, oh, haha, yeah, they're failing too. But then the question is again, what will the domino effects be, right? We buy cheap things. We buy things from China, but then China buys a lot from the rest of the world. That's where we talk about dominoes, right? The suppliers of the suppliers of the suppliers of the suppliers of the suppliers, right? And also, especially with American manufacturing, how many of our manufacturers purchase products that would not be viable at the scale that American manufacturers purchase those products, right? So imagine Ford or imagine some American tech company. They need buttons, right? So they're willing to buy 100,000 buttons a year. Wow, we're gonna buy 100,000 buttons, right? But you have vendors out there, or whatever else. They're like 100,000 buttons isn't worth turning the lights on. Like we need to sell at least 10 million buttons per year. How many instances are there out there of factories that produce a certain thing and 90% or 80% go to something like Chinaman and 20% go to the Western world? Well, if Chinaman fails, all of a sudden they're not selling 80% to China anymore. And then one of the questions that comes up is, what is the viability of the business, right? Americans are like, look, we bought 100,000 buttons from you last year. Things are going great. We're going to buy 200,000 from you this year. And they're like, yeah, but we just lost 9 million in sales to China. Your 200,000 doesn't mean shit to us. And what, again, these dominoes falling can be brutal. Dominoes. As I said, I still remember the day. I still remember sitting on my back porch. I had a townhouse in Baltimore City, drinking my cup of coffee, sitting there in my little, I had these fold-out Coleman chairs, reading my Wall Street Journal, when you could still get that on the Kindle. I remember sitting there reading that, and the day Bear Stearns fell. And as I said, I did not give a shit the day Bear Stearns fell. Sucks to be them. A number of months later, it sucked to be me. But anyways, what do you think about this? What do you think about China's Baidu starting layoffs? What do you think about them going from like 41,000 employees before down to something like 35,000 employees now and getting rid of even more of them? Is this simply the consumer market in China shifting? Or is this a larger warning sign about what's going on with the Chinese economy? Is the goal that the other guy starves first? Is that how you win in the modern world? I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you hate these videos, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing. Call me a dumbass. Just be a real Nick and put a strong American comment down there in the comment section. Do you remember I do these videos in order to support Silicon Dojo, authorityless, gatekeeperless, free to end user hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is you want to do in Durham, North Carolina. We're having class tomorrow on extending AI capabilities using REST APIs. Actually a pretty cool class. We're having class on the 17th using a Moon Dream for AI, computer vision. We're going to be having more and more classes. If you're interested, go to silicondojo.com to see what the schedule is. If you want to support the classes, free to end user is not actually free. That's why I'm here, shaking every day, right? If you want to throw some money in, there's a donor box link down below. And with that, see y'all later.